Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What Are You Going to Do About It? I'm excited to bring my guest to you today. It's a phenomenal young person by the name of Brianna Mims. Brianna, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Great. Thank you for accepting my invitation to be on the show. I'm always excited to talk to young people and to hear what their challenges are today and like how they navigate through those things. So thank you so much. I'm sure you don't remember, but I've known you since you were born. so throughout our lives, we've connected, with seeing each other or whatever. But so that's always funny because I know, your aunt is my friend and she's always like, Brianna, do you remember Lenita? And I'm sure you're like, no. So that's funny. All right. Why don't you tell everybody what you're up to? Like, what do you do? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Thank you also for inviting me to be on here. I'm an artist, an abolitionist, and a facilitator based in Los Angeles, California. So I create a lot of artwork at the intersection of art and abolition, and I'm also a teaching artist teaching dance from the African diaspora.
Cool. So how long have you been dancing?
My whole life.
Your whole life.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so was it one of those things where you started, as a child, of course, dancing and you're like, okay, this is what I love and I'm going to do this forever? Or is it something that you eventually fell in love with? Like, how did that work?
It was a process because I started when I was younger. I don't think I really necessarily had a relationship to it. It was just something I did because my parents signed me up. And then it started to get serious. And I remember the elements of like the joy, the fun, and the passion were kind of sucked out. So it was a process of kind of refining that. And right now it feels like my center, my home. It's a language, a way I'm able to communicate and move through the world. And so I feel like everything now kind of stems from my relationship with my body. It's a different experience and a way of being in the world when you're like in this full body listening as you're navigating. So I'm really grateful for my practice. It's really special.
How did you end up in LA?
I went to USC, so I went to their dance program, which allowed me to explore a lot more and find other interests. And then those things begin to combine with dance. And so after I graduated, I ended up staying here in LA because there's so many different types of communities. And so I'm able to kind of dibble and dabble and build and, be in community with so many different types of people and nurture so many different parts of myself, which I'm really grateful for.
Cool story. All right. So let's get into it. The name of the show is What Are You Going to Do About It? And as our audience knows, we ask 3 simple questions. What was the problem? How did you recognize it was a problem? And what did you do about it? So without further ado, I'm going to give it to you and let you tell us what your problem was and how did you discover it was a problem?
Thank you. So I want to take the approach of kind of expanding it out. The first time I saw the question, it made me think of my work. And I think at the core and at the root of what I'm doing is relationship building. I'm always in a quest of how can we be in healthy relationships, not only with each other, but with ourselves, with the land, and with all of the species that we share this planet with. And I think the biggest lesson from that I learned is that I'm not an individual. We are so interconnected, even to just breathing. Like we need the oxygen from the plants to actually breathe here on Earth. And so once I kind of step back and see myself as an interconnected being with all of these different things, and that I am made up and influenced subconsciously by my whole ecological environment. I think there's a deep appreciation and awareness for just being in healthy relationship with everything. And it's a constant quest, a constant checking in with, you know, even today, like this morning, I went to the farmer's market. Like, it's important to me to get my produce from farmers who are in right relationship with the land, and that I'm also circulating my money in an intentional way. Like, all of these little details around living well and living intentionally is super important when we think about quote unquote right relationship with this, which is something that's ever evolving. And I think that's a root to a lot of the sort of social problems that we're having. The root of it, like I said, I think is about not knowing how to be in relationship. And there's so many layers of that. Like I said, it could be personal, interpersonal, communal, cultural, all the way up to the systemic level. It's about seeing ourselves as interconnected beings and not as individuals.
So how did you get to this point? Because I'm sure when you were 10 years old, you weren't thinking about all of these things. So what happened, I guess, that helped you, start thinking that way and recognizing that if you don't think that way, then, that in itself is a problem. So
Right.
what helped you shift your mindset, I guess?
I think a lot of scholarship gave me the language, right? So I think there's a lot of scholars that influence my work, but there's also this intuitive and innate thing to be curious as a child. Even as I watch children today, there's a different sort of curiosity and appreciation for sort of everything that's around. So it's kind of like going back to that curious and innate self, but also really practical skills, like how to have uncomfortable conversations, how to be in conflict in a generative manner. Those are things that I have to actively practice. So like I said, there's many scholars I could tell you about them, but that have shaped sort of my understanding. But again, it feels like really innate to wonder, what is that bird doing, and have a moment, watch the bird, and then be in gratitude for the songs that it's singing outside of my window. Just little things like that. And it's like, oh, I see the bird. Maybe I shouldn't put this plastic on the ground and choke the bird. Like, and then like, oh, I want to do my work. I want to live a long, healthy life. Maybe I shouldn't, put food in my body that's sprayed with chemicals on it. So it's just like all of these sorts of little things, little questionings and curiosity, trying to figure out, how do I live well, right? So yeah.
So it really wasn't a conscious thing at first, right? It just kind of happened over time.
Yeah. And then also being drawn and being in community where you see some of these things practice, that is really helpful. It's like, oh, this is a different way of being in relationship with people. This is not like surface level. These are really deep relationships. People aren't running away from conflict. They're having conversations. People are really caring for each other, showing up for each other. And that's something that feels good to be a part of. And so seeing that and getting to be a part of spaces like that then influences all of the other spaces I'm in. I think for me, the work starts within my house and then expands out.
So how old are you now?
I'm 25.
25. Wow, I'm old. Woo. Anyway, so I remember even as a young person, you would always find a way to give back. So do you think, is that when you first began to kind of like recognize the need for community and, building those relationships?
So I think maybe at a younger age, I think that was something that was instilled in me. But I think I had the framework of I was helping someone or something. I don't think it was a sort of interconnected thing. Like, oh, I am not free until you're free. Like, we are connected type of thing. It's not we are in community together. It's not I'm helping you because you need help. This is like, we are in this together type of framework. So I think when I was younger, it was more so like, oh, I need to help people. I need to save some type of framework. And I'm not really there anymore. I'm not trying to save anybody. I'm trying to be in genuine community and build relationship with people, and be in reciprocal relationships. And that doesn't always look 50-50. So that's not what I'm saying, that it's always like this give and take. Sometimes one person is getting more, but I think it's just a different framework and being in relationship, to different way of being in relationship, not from like a savior sort of mindset. I also see the value in everybody else, no matter what position that they're in. There's something that I can learn from them as well.
Okay. Makes sense. So we were talking before we started recording, and you just recently got back from Ghana and Senegal. Like, how does that translate into your, I guess, the work that you do overseas? And is there a difference? Do you see a difference between working here in the States versus, going back to, the motherland and working there?
A little bit. Yes. And just because of the way that colonialism has happened, a lot of sort of ideologies have kind of translated, but there's really beautiful practices that I took away with me from the continent. I think for me as a dancer, I was working with some dance companies over there, and what was so important and so beautiful about the experience is understanding the life that shapes the thing. I think a lot of things, again, in sort of Western culture, are really separated. It's like, this is the dance, this is food, this is this. But it was like, oh, understanding how the taste of the food shaped the dance. Understanding, okay, I'm going to the funeral, I'm going to the baby naming ceremony. These are where these dances were birthed out of, in these social settings. Understanding, people were like, how do you know how to dance but not play the rhythm on the drums? Like, that didn't make sense to them, because everything is so interconnected. All of these things are shaping each other, and there was a much more deeper understanding of that there. So I was really grateful for that. I felt like I got a full understanding and an experience with this that I was working on, because again, I was in the social settings, I was in the kitchen with people. I was, really living life and understanding life in the culture that shaped all the things and how they were interconnected. And for me, that felt really important, especially for someone. I've been studying West African dance since I was in 4th grade. That was my first time in West Africa dancing. And it's in dance, there's so many different names, but there's like things we call like the pocket or the juice, or like this sort of thing of the movement that is only understood and able to be translated through lived experience. Like, you can do steps, but if it's like in hip hop, like if you don't know, if you're not in the club and you're not understanding how these things are happening in social settings or what they were actually birthed out of, you can be in a classroom all day learning steps, but it's not until the life experiences that birth these practices that actual like juice and flavor that it is going to be there. So yeah, I think that also reiterated what I was saying about relationship. Even thinking about, what is the natural ecology of the places. I was like in the forest with people, tasting the fruits or helping them in their gardens. Like, all of those things felt important to me practicing these dances. And they were, because they were all interconnected. It wasn't separate.
Now, I know you mainly focus on a specific genre or a specific type of dance, but you've studied, everything from, like you said, West African dance to ballet. And so what are the biggest differences, or do you think that, like, it's all connected and it's just in a different form, a different language, so to speak? Like, what do you see there?
In regards to dance styles, I think what's so beautiful about them is that every dance reflects the culture in which it was derived. And so I personally, I'm like, I wish I could just travel around and dance with so many different cultures, because there's like such a it's like a pathway into understanding of people and how to live. Yeah, and it's so beautiful to see how those cultural practices are reflected in the dance. And so, no, they're not the same at all. But it tells you so much about a people, and to be able to be in a place and to do those dances with them and to understand and be involved in the culture that shaped them and birthed them is really beautiful. I
I
always say,
think, no, I think you need to write this down and get it copywritten before someone else takes the idea. And it really needs to be a docu-series. Like, it would
I
be
would love
so
to do that.
interesting.
Every
Yeah.
time I travel, I'm like, I need to find my cousins. This is what I always say.
Mhm.
And dance is a way that helps me find my cousins. Like, I'm the type of traveler that I'm like, I need to find my cousins and I just need to be with them. Like, I want to do whatever they do. If they in their auntie kitchen, I want to be in their auntie kitchen. If they're like on the corner sitting down talking with their friends, I just want to sit there. Even if I don't understand the language, I just want to sit there and be in the presence and observe and try to engage as much as possible. But those little mundane moments are so important to me.
Yeah, it reminds me so much of like an Anthony Bourdain show, or those shows that focus on food and like how it's intertwined with the culture and the people and all of that. So I think you have something here. I think
Oh, thank you.
I think you got something. All right. So I know you are doing a lot of work, a lot of activism and things like that. Why don't you share with our audience some of the things that you have going on, some of the things that you've been a part of, and what are also those things that are coming up?
Yeah. Okay. So those are a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start with the game, since we were just talking about on the continent. So for the past 2 years, I've been building this abolitionist world building game, trying to well, not trying. The goal is for people to come together and to build their ideal community in groups. And it's really a tool to help us experiment and to push beyond our realities into more imaginative and creative ideas, structures, systems. So we use one, cross-cultural exchange, bringing people together from various different communities to kind of help people push outside their imagination, but also playing with biomimicry. So we've been looking at all of these social behaviors and structures within different species and kind of pulling some of those things out and throwing them as a card to help people imagine something new. And so I've been working on that with a small team for the past maybe 2 years at this point, and it's been so beautiful. We've done it here in Los Angeles, some universities here, but also some universities up north, Northern California. We've done it in some prisons here, and then when I was in Ghana, we did a play test. When I was in Senegal, we did a play test. When I was in Morocco, we did a play test, and I'm planning to do one in Tanzania maybe sometime in the summer. But it's so beautiful to see people come together. We did an international one as well that had people from a bunch of different countries. But it's so beautiful to see people come together, and their values are so different and their lived experiences are so different. Their priorities, their wants, their needs are so different. And to share with each other, one, but also figuring out how to make decisions to make a community that everybody can thrive in. And there's no right or wrong answer, but it's really just a tool to help people experiment and try new ideas. And I think the act of just pushing out the imagination is so important in our work. I've worked for grassroots organizations that are doing more like policy bound stuff. And a lot of the things are the same thing over and over and over again. People are scared to try new things. And there's some reality to that. But for me, one of my core beliefs in my abolition work, and this is something I learned from Miriam Kaba, is that like it's improvisation work. And I feel like it's where it connects with dance. Like I don't feel the need to be attached to sameness and certainty. I crave the possibility of the unknown. And so I would love to see that in little experiments of like alternate systems and structures. And so the game is really a tool to help people, one, get comfortable in stepping outside of the certainty of this current system we live in, but also just allow them to play in this imagination space, but also be practical in terms of these are the needs of all of these different people. These are the experiences of all these different people, and what do we build? And it's so fun. When I was in Ghana, I had a really beautiful experience. We have some fun cards, like they pulled a card where they had to build a community that's floating on water. And throughout the whole play test, folks kept referring back to this actual village in Ghana that is floating on water. So I was like, I have to go. But the next weekend, I had to organize a trip and actually see this village that was floating on water. And there's little moments like that. Yeah, I didn't know this thing existed. And so doing the actual work led me to another community. And it just was a really beautiful moment. So that's one project. I'm really looking forward to.
What's the name of it?
I haven't named it yet. I'm still trying to figure out what the name is.
Okay.
It takes me forever to name things. So I'm planning also to build out a website hub where all of these different dreams can live, because throughout the process of the game, they're not only engaging in conversation, but they're also engaging in art making. So they can write a letter to 2 generations away, kind of telling them about the community. And I have like a stack of them that these letters are so beautiful. At the end of the process, that people are writing to 2 generations away about this community that they built and the values and what their hopes and dreams are for it. They can do a song, a dance, and they can also write like a creation story that's told within their community. So that's one project. The project Uncle Ronnie's Room that I was working on. So I'm planning to do that in Georgia again. I'm still kind of waiting things out for that, so I haven't made any moves. Kind of working on media plan stuff, but that is a art-driven campaign to kind of get his case open back up. So we transformed an old cell into his childhood bedroom, and then the cell across we turned into an altar space. And so there's a documentary, there's a billboard, there's the performance, and then there's the installation element, and they're all in relationship to each other. So the documentary, the first episode, was about the experience of my family coming together to go through his stuff for like the first time in like 20 something years. And also just reflecting on how his incarceration has impacted everybody. So inside of the room, the cell that's turned into his childhood bedroom, there's so many different interactive elements, from listening to him talk on headphones, playing some of his favorite records. There's a letter from him. There's home videos on the TV, and seeing all of his personal things like photo albums and cards and things you can get to read. And then across in the cell that's turned into an altar space, I pulled from a lot of things in the South where I'm from. I specifically used moss from my great-grandparents' trees in their yard in Savannah, Georgia. They were organizers in the South during the Civil Rights era. So it was like this very beautiful ancestral sort of moment of, call for guidance that we need throughout this process. And so we played with that and building out the altar space. And then also my grandma had collected all of these shells and rocks and things from around the house over time. And so we used some of those nature elements, going back to like the relationship and the ways in which those things have shaped and are shaped by the people that lived in that ecological space with them. So people got to write prayers and leave them in that room. There was also projections of Black folks shouting in church. I love that space of fugitivity when people to see people open up, and it brings me back to like watching videos about Black folks on the plantation, and they kept their shouting rooms. There was something about being able to tap into that space and that higher power that provided them a sense of fugitivity that I have so much reverence for. And then I also had a video of an interview with my grandma on the wall in the altar space room as well. And then the performance was to my great-grandparents' favorite songs. And so they were church songs. We actually had a choir inside of the cell that sung one of the songs. So that was a really beautiful moment. It felt like a prayer, the performance. And it was beautiful to bring everybody into ceremony with me to give this offering and this prayer. And so that's still rolling out. The docuseries is still rolling out because it's following the entire process. So that's another.
So I know about the project, of course, but for the audience, can you give them the cliff notes or a little bit of background on how it came to be?
Yes. So my uncle, Ronald Coleman Jr., he has been incarcerated for 22 years. He has 2 life sentences plus 65 years, and he's in Calhoun State Prison in Morgan, Georgia. And so there has been several attempts over the past 2 decades to try and get his case reopened, from lawyers trying to scam people to like people's money running dry from trying to pay for lawyers. And there's all sorts of politics intertwined with all of these things. And so this is an art-driven campaign to try to get people in the media involved to kind of talk about his case, to push to get it reopened. And what's also really beautiful is that there's always an action attached. So everyone who came to see the installation or the performance, they sent in a letter to the district attorney. They were signed and mailed, or people could also do so online if they weren't able to make it there. So we got a lot of letters sent in. And there's so much drama involved with all of that stuff that's unnecessary to get.
Yeah. But I think what's also beautiful about it is that it really does call attention to, this system of incarceration, like, whether it's the pipe to prison pipeline or school to prison pipeline or, unfair sentencing. It really does bring light to all of these different social issues that we, especially people of color, deal with.
Yes,
that's cool.
For sure.
All right. So what else do you have?
Let's see. I'm working on a performance right now for a festival I'm performing at in Senegal, actually at the end of next month, which is because I still got to figure out what the full performance. But the process of developing it has been really beautiful. It's called, me and my partner decided on the name yesterday. It's because we're creating it in collaboration. I'm the only one performing it, but it's called Honey Stomach. And it is actually inspired by this verse in the Quran. He's Muslim, but it just kind of, through different conversations around like the womb space and deep reverence and the sort of innate wisdom that happens from that space, but also like this idea of this bee that just is always present when we're around each other. And it led us to this verse that kind of literally talks about the bee and the honey that comes from the bee, and that it's like it's an offering and healing for all those who reflect. And so we've been working on creating this really beautiful performance that is kind of giving reverence and also an offering from the womb space. So yeah, it's still like in its process of trying to figure out what it is, but I'm not rushing the process. It's been really beautiful to kind of explore and find it. So yeah, I'm excited for that performance. I think it's also going to be interactive. Today when I was at the farmer's market, I saw all of these honey sticks. And so we were talking about yesterday of either creating questions or a sort of step-by-step meditation to have people reflect on their own womb space and kind of center and ground them, just take a moment to listen type of thing, but also giving them the honey stick that they can also take with them and like just have some honey, since that's, what's happening in the performance and with the verse. So it's really beautiful. We're playing also with language in terms of Arabic and English throughout the soundscape as well. We've been building that. So that's something that's in the works. And then I'm also trying to launch a farm to prison initiative. The only reason I make that face is because it's just yeah, there's a lot that has to go into that. But I would like to create a pipeline that in partnership with different farms in California. And basically, this initiative is a pipeline to get some of these produce and foods inside of the prison. A lot of the people that I work with are coming out with illnesses because of the food that they've been eating. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of nourish people. People are really nutrient deficient because of the food inside, and they can't even live their lives once they're out because they're so sick. So trying to get quality food inside and not just processed food.
Right.
So those are the things.
It's so much. And I know I remember you modeling during Fashion Week, and I think you had a campaign with Adidas and like all of these different things. So it's just really beautiful to see you like walk in all of your glory and your gifts and talents, and then at the same time balance that with, you know, just being connected and giving back to the planet. So it's very cool to see.
I appreciate
it. To see. So why don't you tell everybody how to follow you and, you know, how to get involved with some of these campaigns that you're working on?
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at BJ_Mims, MIMS. My email is also there. You can always shoot me a DM or an email, but I pretty much keep people updated through there. Sometimes I do send out newsletters via MailChimp, but every once in a while if there's something big going on. So yeah, if you want to follow me there, that's a great way to kind of keep updated. I also have a website, which is bjmims.com.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing such a beautiful, it's not even really a story. I guess it's an experience. So thank you for allowing us all to join in on this experience that you're living.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me and listening.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. Again, the show is called What Are You Going to Do About It? And, you know, if you find yourself in a jam, in a pickle, always ask yourself, what am I going to do about it, and do something about it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.